Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest, returning guest, Dr. Hans Utter. Last name is spelled Utter. And this will be part 5 in the series that we've done titled Advanced Soviet Research on Cybernetics, Biofield, Energetics, and Cognitive Restructuring. And last one we did with Brandon, and that was a pretty cool show. But this one, we're kind of flying back to solo. And also, we also did a long 8-part series on the dead. We were just talking about that in the pre-show. So people can check those out at the archive. But you can also go to his website and see what he's up to. I'll try to post that on this. If you're watching this on YouTube or Rockfin or on X, you will see this live. And then the audio goes out. But yeah, check out his website. So Dr. Hans Utter, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, William. It's great to be here. And, I have to say it's good. I mean, I've got so many shows, which is cool. It's great to perform, depends on what the concert is, but it also takes up a lot of time. Right. And I'm not, it's not like, I don't know. I'm not out there with Britney Spears or Miley Cyrus. So it's not quite that kind of money, but hey, it's, so I definitely want to kind of focus more on this. But you know what? Hey, I could be like breaking rocks on a chain gang or something.
Yeah, you have to put everything in perspective, right? So you were busy. You had like 4 shows last weekend or something like that.
I have 5 this week just alone.
Wow,
so
good for you. That's
yeah,
cool.
I mean,
good to be busy. You had that big show in New York too, right?
Yeah. And some of these are like, I'm doing like the funk, R&B funk guitar, and then I'm doing sitar and stuff. So it's not like, it is what it is. Hey, it's money. Like I said, I'm not, I'm not working on the chain gang.
But it's fun. It's a good way to make a buck is doing music, right? Playing music.
Yeah.
And that's kind of was our theme of the dead. We were talking about the pre-show. I just learned that the dead archives are at UCSC. I had no idea, but I'm sure those are very interesting. But maybe we can just catch up. I think our last show was a couple months ago, last month we did. So this will be part 5. And we're going to talk about the Bolshevik Revolution, right?
Yeah. And one of the things that I was alluding to, or maybe directly stating, but that we cannot see the Bolshevik Revolution as an isolated phenomena, in that the entire parity, the entire state of fear, the quote unquote competition between the United States and the Soviet Union was, at the highest levels. If it wasn't for the United States funding the Soviet Union, that would have completely collapsed. They were, and if you look at people like H.G. Wells, the Fabian socialists, you got like Ramsey, you've got these the Frankfurt School, which is another side of that. And I just recently found out about the whole queer movement has the same end of history ideology, right? Wow. And this is coming from, in fact, there's a new book. The name is escaping me, but there's one of the guys that was a member of the Weather Undergrounds talking about the slow march through the institutions. So the whole queer movement has, in fact, permeated the entire apparatus of the educational system, top to bottom. Teacher training, academic research, credentialing. They have something, they try to create stress situations for children. To do this, they create operational directives. In operational directives, we look at Leninism here. So we see, and so the queer movement, the whole goal of this, it is not about even quote unquote sexuality. It is about destroying and subverting any societal, moral, social, biological code. And the end of history, right? So the end of history, if people aren't familiar with that, this is, sort of we call it teleological argument, or teleological philosophical stance, which means it's going to a specific goal, right? And so where do we see this end of history? The new industrial revolution, right? We look at some of the older stuff on, globalization. They talk about the end of history, right? But the end of history means that, time is now static, right? There is no more operational agency for human beings, right? That is it. But the queer agenda is based upon completely, and it's also based on the doctrine of permanent revolution. So it's not just like, we've introduced furries. Now we got to keep pushing it. Once furries become normalized, we're going to go to the next phase and the next phase and the next phase. It doesn't end until all moral codes, all identities, they call it the social contagion of cultural tradition is completely eradicated, right? And once that's eradicated, then everyone is free to be queer in themselves. But queer really, it is a completely nihilistic worldview, and it's literally a doctrine. It is a cultic doctrine. And it follows is the exact same principles. Okay. And again, the Leninist, Trotskyist idea, whatever, of this permanent revolution, it's like you have, you have one thing and you gotta say, just look at feminism. A great example of that. Notice how feminists are now on getting hit down by trans activists, right? It's the next stage of the revolution. What's next? Pedophilia. Germany just legalized child porn. There you go.
And bestiality. They have bestiality camps in Germany now. Crazy.
I mean, you've got kids being attacked by fellow students that are furries. You about that protest, the school walkout. But this is exact same doctrine, exact same methodology, just in a particular context. But I would posit that these are all, they're all part of this whole revolutionary doctrine or ethos.
Yeah, no, it's really something else to see that play out. I just did a show on Tavistock, so all those names kind of popped up, Gramsci and all these other characters, because Rees, who was Tavistock, had that same thing. He was going to go through the institutions, but Tavistock them, instead of turn them into communist, kind of infiltrated by communists, but infiltrated by propagandists, right? So it's kind of interesting to see all these names pop up over again, Bateson and Mead and that kind of idea. But also like Harry Hay, interesting. I did a show on part chapter on him in my book, Children of the Beast. Literally played the organ or piano at OTO things in Hollywood. Probably knew Jack Parsons. It wasn't seem to be a thing of import, but in his biography, he notes that he played music for them. And so he probably was in contact with a lot of those other kind of occultists. So the bleed over is obvious. There's all kinds of Crowley references in certain parts of the gay rights movement. But that revolutionary spirit. You can see the change over from the 80s to the present, right? Like, don't worry, we're just going to accept these gay right people. And then next thing you know, 2024, it's trannies in libraries talking to little kids, right? Singing WAP.
Well, that's exactly part of the doctrine. And the whole thing is to dismantle the social contagion of traditional values, right? So, for in this, for freedom. And so this is completely part of that doctrine. And, if you look at it, the way it started and how around 2010, it really dialed in, and you have this whole, the name is escaping. I think it begins with a W. It's like a 4-letter acronym, but it's this pseudo medical group that has created all these circular references to legitimize these destructive experimental surgeries that are permanent, right? These are permanent. And so there's just a recent report in England that just came out by the British.
Was it the empath documents? The empath documents?
Oh, gosh,
does that sound right?
It may be. I think it's WPATH or something, but it's so this is this basically this group created this pseudo medical literature that's been accepted across the board. Now in Europe they're pushing back and they're dropping it, but the whole thing is even they're attacking people that have regret right over the surgery. WPATH, that's it. Yep. WPATH.
Yeah, Schellenberger, actual real journalist, covered this on social media in great detail. There was like a video of them talking for like 90 minutes that
Yeah.
he broke down. It was incredible because they like here's the way to get around resistance. Here's the way to not share information. Here's the way to dissuade the parents. I mean, they were really just like, it was so craven and vulgar. It was incredible. I mean, because they're permanently annihilating their gender, these kids' gender.
Well, and then of course the thing is that, so this is, we go to this, really, this nihilism, right? It's a nihilism. It is a denial of of nature. You could say a denial of God. It is a denial. It's in a certain way, it's satanic in that you can create whatever you want, right? Oh, I want to be this, I want to be that. And it's like, no, I mean, you're born in a human body. You have a gender, unless, you're one of that very small percentage, micro percentage that's born like as a, whatever, as a hermaphrodite or something. But it's amazing. And they push. The thing is that kids have identity crises. They're getting picked on at school. They're having, issues with their whatever your puberty, and what they, instead of saying you need some psychological counseling, oh, you have a gender crisis. They're being pushed into it. I mean, and then once you get that surgery, and you start taking those drugs, which, a lot of the test, some of the testosterone blockers, those were used as for sex offenders, right? They were used as part of the penal code is a chemical castration. You know what I mean? I mean,
It's incredible.
this is, I mean, it's child abuse. I mean, and the thing is, though, that it is institutionally supported, and it is a doctrine that you cannot contradict, because then you become a hater, right? You become an enemy. But another thing that's
Transphobe, right? That's what you get
transphobe.
hit with. You're
Yep.
supposedly have some irrational fear of people instead of like, hey, this was a person who can't even consent to it. They can't sign a contract for a credit card, but you're about to undergo. And the visuals for those surgeries, guys, are just something else. You have to see them. Like, they cut off like skin from your forearm and put it on. Like, these people they cannot have an informed consent to some of that stuff. Give me a break.
Mia Hughes she does a really great journalist. I gotta give her, she did, I really, yeah, I was very impressed with her work. She did excellent work, and she's very passionate about this. But what's very interesting is the trans movement. If you look at the literature, the queer literature, go back to academia back in the 90s, whatever, even before then, in the 70s, this stuff started, actually going back to the 70s. They are basing it on what? On Mao. How did Mao create the Red Guard? How did he create these indoctrinated armies of children? They're using the exact same methods, and in fact, directly citing Mao. So this ties back to
Wow, I
the
didn't
Soviet
know
thing.
that.
Yes. So they're creating the cadre, like the youth, the Communist Youth League or whatever, right? So,
Like the
and they're,
Khmer Rouge or something, right? Same
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
right?
And they actually, this is not, this is not me speculating. This is their literature. They cite this as the ideal. You know what I mean? So, and in
Wow.
fact, are they not creating that? To a certain degree, they certainly are. Um, so, yeah, but back to I guess my original point was that, so, the great tragedy of the Red Terror, we need to be aware of that as to what can happen and easily happen here. I remember, I was thinking on a show with Jan Irvin years ago, and I said, well, what will it look like? I said, it's going to look like the Bolshevik. It's going to look like the Red Terror if it really hits. You know what I mean? And hopefully it doesn't. You know what I mean? I don't like to be negative. I certainly don't want that to happen. But to just to understand what went on there, and of course today we can look at it replicated in China, in the Khmer Rouge, right? I mean, you're talking about real horror. Um, and and also there's a level of call almost social derealization, right? So it's everything has this, at least when I was in Russia, or this was in the 2000s or whatever. But still, you see all this stuff. It's really weird. There's just so much corruption. There's so much, all these KGB agents wandering around, and passporta, and I got arrested. I didn't have my passport. They took me into a holding cell. I got out. I paid them off, but it's you get this. It's almost like there's a, it's like the fabric of reality is kind of shaky. You know what I mean? Because it's been so torn apart by all this stuff. I don't know if that's too far out there,
But it is like society is being ripped apart by these ideologies. It's really incredible. Like, it's just like we did that one show where we were looking through these communist ideas. It's like check mark, check mark, check mark. So you're really seeing that in America, something that is off the charts. And like that's the whole thing. Like, and apparently the Bolshevik Revolution is that a lot of those elites thought it was like, oh, these guys are nice guys, and then those elites ended up getting killed in that war against the White Russians and the Reds, right? I mean, it was a brutal war before they came to power, and then they killed off all their enemies, and then they killed the freaking Tsar, right? The Romanov dynasty died.
yeah.
And then yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no. And then just to get a sense of that, living under that, and they just mass. We probably don't need to watch this. It's very unpleasant, but there's a documentary I mentioned, the Jory Lina thing, where it shows. I mean, they literally had these just mechanized mass slaughter of people, where they just be shot and their bodies go on the conveyor belt, literally. One after another, thousands, millions, just endless killing. And but also just this constant terror, right? You don't know what to say. You don't know how to say it. And also what we have here, and this ties into, we get back, in the Pavlov stuff of the called schismogenesis, right? Which is, everyone talks about the double bind, which, you're familiar with Bateson's term, right? The double bind, which is honestly, the schismogenesis stuff is much more appropriate. I think the double bind is, somebody says something and they mean something else. I mean, that's not going to make you schizophrenic. I'm sorry. That's just a basic factor of human life, right? We have double binds, but the cognitive dissonance, right? And this is Pavlov's, not with the bell, right? Because Pavlov, and stressing here, he was a physiologist. He was a physiologist. Okay. So you're operating on the, the adrenal system, that, you're operating on the mechanisms of the body, thereby affecting the mind. But this is, and it's precognitive, right? These are types of conditionings that are happening outside, quote unquote, the cognitive range of awareness, and they become installed into the organism, right? That's what makes it so pernicious. And in fact, these conditioning things can be invisible to the person that is undergone this conditioning. And except for the inner circle, probably even, like, say, the trans movement we're talking about, probably most people just think they're doing the right thing, right?
Yeah.
Probably 85%. There's probably 10 or 15% that know this is the revolutionary doctrine that aims to transform the entire planet to go to this idealized utopia, end of history, where there's no values at all. Everyone can just be purely queer. Queer just means a negation of, it's not even gender, it's a negation of everything, every biological precept, any societal norm, anything. And you have to keep intensifying and going further and further and further. And there's no end to it. It does not end, right? It's perpetual revolution. There's no ground,
I mean, that was like the whole thing of communism, is that it was going to be a global revolution, and it was inevitable. It was just a matter of time. Like, this whole capitalist thing was just a big fantasy, like we talked about in our last show, or the show before last, where it's like it was a phantasm. Capitalism's a phantasm, and communism is the reality, and it's just a matter of time to implement that. So that's the way they think. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and if you read, I don't know if you've ever been friends or known any, like, hardcore intellectual leftists. I mean, they know. I mean, they're very erudite. A lot of them. I mean, they'll just keep going on and on and on. I mean, and it's quite, detailed. You have the basis of Hegel, and not the sort of the Hegelian dialectic, which is, from None Dare Call Conspiracy, David Icke, which, anyways, I just have my own personal annoyance with that term because people don't understand Hegel. But anyways, I mean, this is very deep. There's a deep philosophical grounding and kind of a rigorous intellectual methodology that a lot of people don't recognize. Yet, of course, the fundamental that also obscures the destination and the actual ground, which is this full nihilism, which is this full materialistic total control. And so the WEF is not any way separate from this. They're also going to, the fourth industrial revolution. What is that? That's another end of history. What is 6G?
Right.
That's the
Right.
same doctrine. And what does the trans movement lead to? Transhumanism, right?
Right.
Transgender leads to transhumanism. They're all these things are interpenetrating, and they're all going. It's like they're all maybe it's me looking at multiple horses that are pulled, but they're pulling the cart of society in a similar direction. Maybe sometimes there's some contrary movement, but they're all basically going in the same direction. You can go through across the board of all these different things, and they're all, whether it's radical environmental stuff that has really nothing to do with the actual environment, right? It's just, um, uh, but anyways,
Yeah, no, I mean the bloodthirsty Uralina. I couldn't find that video. It used to be online. And the one under the sign of the scorpion used to be online and super brutal. But I don't remember the movie, but it was about Stalin's like butchery, and the butchery of the Bolsheviks was just off the charts. And like you said, it was mechanistic. It was almost like bring them in, shoot them, so shove them in the truck and get rid of them. Like it was done. And there was this one guy. If you want to look this up, this is just Wikipedia for, take it for with a grain of salt. But this is a real guy. He was Stalin's executioner for the whole life of Stalin. And they think he was responsible for 828,000 deaths. And he was the one who shot like all the important people. So look at all the badges. Like he earned all these badges. There's other pictures of this guy, but he's a known guy. Like, just on like Blokin personally pulled the trigger on all the individual high-profile executions conducted in the Soviet Union during his tenure, including the old Bolsheviks at the Moscow trials, Marshal of the Soviet Union Mikhail Tukhachevsky, and then the other 2 or 3 of the NKVD chiefs. So the secret police guys came. Yeah, Yagoda. And yeah, these guys are real killers, man. Real killers. I forgot who the other head of the NKVD2 was. He was like a serial killer. He was like a literal serial killer. It's crazy.
But see, all this is justified, right? This is not only is it justified, it's good under this ideology. You are doing good. You're doing good. And so again, this is the annihilation of it's really basically, it's also like it's a mechanistic scientific type of doctrine. It's an imposition of an intellectual framework upon the world, right? It's of an egoistic and of course, as I mentioned, you look at Anthony Sutton, Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution, all that stuff. I mean, it was funded by, Lenin, he stayed in the, was a Waldorf Astoria, man. He wasn't, they funded top to bottom. And now Germany also funded them in order to destabilize the Soviet Union. And that was that was sort of a bad move on their part. But I mean, you have where they remember it was a Canada, right? He was there with all these revolutionaries from Lower East Side.
Trotsky was all over there. Schiff, he was appointed by Schiff. Schiff had some gripe with the Soviet Union because of all the pogroms that took place in the 19th century. So he was definitely involved. You don't want to talk about international Jewry. I mean, they were involved in that. And there's the famous kind of Trotsky was really, his name was Lev Bronstein, but there was a famous train to St. Petersburg that was full of German gold that Lenin was like shipped in. A lot of these guys were kicked out of the country, right? So they were all expatriates in Switzerland or Austria or something like that. But
well, they also, they were detained in Canada, and they got a call from like the Secretary of State, United States, saying, "Let these guys go." You know about that? So there's the whole,
I've heard that.
yeah. So, Yeah,
I
there's
think
many
we've
like
talked about that once with
yeah,
somebody in one of my other shows.
yeah, and if you want the real, on the ground, reporting of what was really happening with all the propaganda in the New York Times, right? Propaganda, it's saying how great it was. The British white papers, which that has a lot of these. And it's really, I some of the stuff it is good to know. Even say with I do feel that there's certain things it's maybe better not to fill your mind too much with like say like even the Pizzagate stuff. Like you don't once you know what's going on, you don't need to keep watching and taking more of that into your brain. Right. So I don't say read about all these massacres and we can go into the details of these atrocities. They're just unbelievable, right? They're beyond it goes beyond imagination. But that being said, again, just to touch back a little of the cybernetics. So so with the cybernetics group, so you have like Mead and all these people were you have all these people recruited, right? So this is a quote here. In the 1940s, American anthropologists, sociologists, psychologists, and linguists had been mobilized for the war effort. The war had opened up a whole new governmental activity as fields of inquiry for social scientists. Psychological warfare research, morale studies, and propaganda analysis became firmly established as specialized fields. Applied anthropology blossomed. Anthropologists operated in their professional capacities in military intelligence, the Department of State, the Office of Strategic Services, the Board of Economic Warfare, the Strategic Bombing Survey, military government, the Selective Service Organization, the Office of Naval Intelligence, Office of War Information. Sorry, it keeps going. I'll just finish. The Quartermaster Corps, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the War Location Authority, the Alcan Highway Project, the Hydrographic Office of the Chief of Naval Operations of the Foreign Economic, the Chemical Warfare Division, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then the American Psychological Association during the war grew from 2,600 members to 4,000 members. And by 1960, over 12,000 members. Clinical psychology was directly tied into the war effort and continued that connection continued that connection. Um, and so social science, anthropology, sociology, psychiatry, even endocrine study, all these quote unquote scientific academic disciplines were funneled into and connected with this whole variety of governmental organizations which remained. At the same time, many of these people brought these ideologies that they were, so even though they're ostensibly operating on behalf of the United States, they are importing this ideologies, right? I mean, the leftist stuff was very extremely popular, right, among the educated elite. I mean, across the board, right? I mean, my I'm sure my dad won't watch this video. I mean, my family, they were quite prominent in California. My grandfather and the whole leftist circles, he had all kinds of people over there, famous writers and this and that. It was like a salon. I mean, I never got to hang out where I was just a kid, but I mean, well, even before that, but I mean, they were part of this very dynamic leftist scene, and it seemed probably great to them. They weren't amoral people, and on the surface, it seems like, oh, we're going to make the world a better place, right?
Right.
But how many intellectuals were part of it? How many intellectuals would say, "Well, go ahead and you're going to send these documents over." Or just you got your steering, right? You have the steering mechanisms. So I don't know that was relevant, but I'm saying like this. So we're talking about the impact, right? And so the cybernetics group, case in point, right? So not that there weren't, there were many, patriotic Americans. Many of them got killed. George Patton, he was assassinated, right? George Patton was assassinated. The oh gosh, the guy that was thrown out of he was locked in a mental hospital and was
Oh, yeah, no, I did a show on Forrestal.
Yeah, James Forrestal. I mean, this guy was, they came after him hard because he
Yeah, they
wouldn't
did.
toe the line, and they locked him up. And they just
Then
this
they
guy
chucked
was
him out the window, just like Frank Olson, right?
yeah,
Same
yeah.
type of thing. Yeah.
But this guy was, high ranking in the government, wealthy, I mean, generational wealth, highly educated, high position in society. So if they can touch someone like James Forrestal, they can do it to anybody almost, right? So that was a message too, right? I mean, Patton, you know, I mean, and many others, and how many people were just marginalized or shunted aside, people that would call this out, right? Because, the other side is that, um, just like that W path stuff, and I think that, the journalist mentions this too, is that one of the things that's very hard is for them to walk all these the American Medical Association. Let's walk this back. How do you walk back something like this? How many hundreds of thousands of kids? How do you walk this back? Oh, we were wrong. Sorry. We didn't bother to see this is just, sorry to swear, but just bullshit circular citations with no scientific basis whatsoever. It's pure ideology. And it's based on this nihilistic, you know, communistic satanic ideology that's, you look at it, it is, it is absolutely insane and completely
It's
destructive.
totally insane. It's totally insane. It's crazy too, because like they shut down the Tavistock clinic there because of that, because of this transgender stuff and gender pills and all that. And then there's a guy, like, you don't know what it's done to people's minds and bodies. Like, I've talked to Sean about it. Like, the consequences could be immense. And there was a guy who was caught doing a smiley face killing in Oxford, who was transgender. Like, he went through that Tavistock clinic. It's incredible. It's like Buffalo Bill or something from Silence of the Lambs. It's incredible. It's an incredible story. It didn't make it to the U.S. media, but I just saw it flat out. But it ties back to this pseudoscientific surgical and hormonal experiments. It's crazy.
How about that boy or girl? That the mother decided he was a girl, and it was all documented. It's called like My Name Is something. My name is I forget the name. My name is Brenda or something, or whatever it is. And so this is a whole. This is real time. You can watch it. It's just tragic, right? She decided he had feminine traits. Decided he was a girl, and broadcast all this. And at the end, you see he's destroyed.
Yeah,
He's got a pseudo vagina, and no one will date him. He's just like
right. And they lose the ability to have sexual functioning. You don't function like a normal person anymore. Like, it's crazy. It's so crazy. It's hard to believe it's even allowed. It's really unbelievable. I think if we survive as a culture, they'll look back and go, "What the heck were you losers thinking, man?" Like, it's that bad. Like, wow.
Yeah, and I think part of this, infiltration is also that, it's very difficult to admit you're wrong, especially when you're looking at these kind of consequences, right?
Yeah,
Because a
agreed.
lot of people rubber stamp stuff. There's a lot of just, you want to fit in. There's that whole, societal pressure.
Right.
There's, the accept, and it's like, oh, you want to get a job, you gotta spout the ideology, right?
Sure.
You're applying for a job. If you don't answer those questions like they want, they're not going to hire you. If you believe it or not, but yet if you do that, you are supporting it and going along with it. And most likely you're not going to question it because you got your job. You want your career. It's like whatever. You know what I mean? And so I think that that's also a factor, So, I mean, just to kind of summarize, you have this movement of, like Meade was a hardcore communist revolutionary. Okay.
Well,
Big time. And also connected with we saw that 33, the Scottish Rite Freemasonry, that documentary. And you look at these tribal cultures, right? And you can see all this stuff being implemented into the counterculture, right? Even the body modification stuff, right? All these different things, these kind of trans stuff, taking these, even cannibalism now, right? I mean, everything. Where's it? You know what I mean? So it was
it's incredible.
yeah, and so like, and Lenin, this is from Vladimir Lenin. He says, quote, We want a world proletarian revolution. I don't care what becomes of Russia. To hell with it. All this is only the road to a world revolution. As an ultimate objective, peace simply means communist world control. That's Lenin
Wow.
says it. That's directly from Lenin. Peace simply means communist world control. That's what peace means. Okay. So this is, and are we not in the midst of a world revolution?
Yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's the opposite of peace. It's just constant conflict and social and cultural upheaval. It's off the charts.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I'll go and just hit a little bit of this. You want to say something more? I'll talk about the under the sun.
No. I mean, I think that you're right. It's just interesting that some of these ideas are still at play. The Stalinism and Leninism and things like that. People still, I've been in these kind of leftist, far left worldviews, and it's like, wow, you guys really think this stuff. You really believe in this. Like the Black Book of Communism says like 150 million dead. And these people still adhere to this ideology that's really worse than Nazism if you do it by body count. Like they killed more people than Nazis because Nazis was so idiosyncratic and like native to Germans, maybe more so than other people. But these other ones, like this communism, man, it got supplanted all over the place. Dead bodies in Indonesia, Cambodia, Russia, China. I mean, and the upheavals in this really the kind of South America too. So it really was a global kind of slaughterhouse. It's called the Black Book of Communism. If people want to check that out, pretty much goes into detail. No leftist will ever mention that, so they self-censor everything and make sure people don't know a lot of like the Holodomor that happened in Ukraine. That was really censored, and a lot of people in the Western world didn't hear that unless they kind of search for it. Now it seems to be more commonly understood, but it was an enforced famine and by Stalin. 5-6 million people died. It's crazy.
No, I think it's much more. Actually, many more died than that. Holodomor is absolutely brutal. I mean,
Yeah.
really. I mean, just. But yeah. But see, I would posit that I don't. So, for example, the this quote unquote queer ideology, it is. You don't even have to be a communist. So I don't. I think that even those terms have become sort of diffused, right? So even though that's what it is, I don't think people necessarily even have to understand or embrace, you know what I mean, socialism, communism. They're part of these other mechanisms, right? You know what I mean? So that
Right.
but
Good
this
point. Yeah.
this world world revolution is you know what I mean? What I'm saying is that so um there is the fact is, so even for the queer thing, right? So maybe in terms of what their goal, this end of history where the whole world becomes queer, right? The whole world is queer, which means completely nihilistic, no social norms. You become whatever you imagine. Any kind of social coherency or cohesion, it's immediately destroyed. So blah blah blah. Um, if you kill a million kids doing it and you turn a whole generation sterile, well, that's worth it because it's in the interest of the revolution. So they're not even using the word communist, but it's the same thing. It's just
Right. Good
another
point. Yeah.
direction, right? So, but it's the same content. I mean, it's the same framing of reality, even if the quote unquote intellectual content is different. You can almost plug and play different types of. You almost look at the transhuman agenda, plug and play. You know what I mean? It's almost, you know what I mean? Like you take out you look at the basic structures and goals and take out, you just drop in the language. It's almost like fill in the blank, right? You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying communist revolution, you say, transhumanist revolution, or you say, queer revolution. Same thing. Does that,
Right. Yeah.
so that makes it very pernicious and harder to see, harder to recognize.
It really is true. I mean, it's incredible what they pulled off, really. Like the culture's changed in my lifetime. 55 now, but they've gone from, fairly stable family units to just like something that you wouldn't believe. Drugs everywhere, transsexuals, sexual, spectrums and things, and indoctrinating the kids, which is really, really scary. These public institutions and infiltrating churches too. Like churches have now supplanted like almost their Christianity with this kind of pride flag or woke ideology, which is an abomination. It's really something incredible. Like some of these, they're really not Christian priests anymore. There's something else. Like they've failed. They've lost the faith.
Oh,
And that's very common. Like I drive by churches with the kind of pride flag out in front of it, and that represents the antithesis of Christianity. So they're literally adopting like a cultural hellscape. It's off the charts, thinking it's good, just like you said. Like they think they're doing the right thing.
yeah, and the same thing. I mean, just you can go so many different agendas. Look at the mass migration. How many churches support that? And look, this is
Ooh,
also this is a but you can plug and play the same thing, you know,
right.
right? And what's it doing? This, but so I'm saying there's many different avenues, and but yet it's still following the same type of revolutionary program, right? Even though
Right.
the
Right.
but ultimately the methods and the methodologies and the ultimate undergirding worldview is the same, right? Even
Right.
though the naming conventions and the matter, right? What they're actually doing, like what they're the subject matter. I mean, subject matter meaning the specific outcome. What I mean? They're working on a specific area of society, but is it not? I mean, and so, but then this can only be justified within this framework, but it is, your total nihilism. And this is the whole thing. Oh, once you destroy society completely, which is the permanent revolution, everything's destroyed. Then suddenly, wow, spontaneously, this workers' paradise is just gonna just come about out of the ground. I mean, come on. It's like,
Right. It's a mirage. It's really incredible. Like it's the same con, a different generation and a different place. And it's the same con job. Like what happened? Like the workers' revolution in Russia, if you didn't work, they kill you, you just get starved out or something horrible would happen. And you had to toe the line. So it wasn't freedom in any way, shape, or form. At least that wasn't even their value.
yeah, well, that's well, going back to was gonna say about Pavlov, tying back in what I said earlier, is the schismogenesis or the generation of schizophrenia. So how was that done in dogs? It was done, and Pavlov did many, many experiments, with a number of these neurophysiologists or again physiologists, but they're affecting the brain through this conditioning. So again, this is going below the cognitive. You're it's like the it's like it's affecting the operating system of the human being, and so the program can run on the surface, but if there's something wrong in the architecture of the computer, you know what I mean? You're not going to fix it just by changing the code, and that's what they're doing. But so this process of not as well known. I mean, just the operant conditioning, which ties into B.F. Skinner, the Skinner box, and all that. But to me, the schismogenesis is a bit more interesting because this ties into cognitive dissonance and ties into a lot of these. We can see this modulation, right, of the social expectations, meanings, this and that, especially what's happening to the kids. So basically, in order to generate schizophrenia in the dogs, and which you obviously apply, and they also did this with children, and they use musical tones. I think I may have mentioned this on the show before, but they know particular pitches and tones, and you can tie this conditioning into sound cues also, right? And even use certain types of disjunctive rhythms and different types of stimulation to do the same thing. You get, the active, the sort of the arousal response of the nervous system and the rest response, and you invert them, right? And you create this like locking, so you can't, you're trying to go up by climbing down and trying to go down by climbing up, basically. So this is, but anyways, so the schizophrenia is generated by, so the dog would have like a, be like a red circle, and there'd be like a bell, and then so they get the food, and then they slowly change the circle so it's an oval, and then they get the food, and then there wouldn't be a bell. There'd be a bell. And then they started just changing the color of the circle and changing the shape gradually and then screwing with the whole feeding mechanism. And the dogs became completely insane. And so this is very powerful and potent. And notice how, say, with the way these meanings change, the term changes, you're doing this, like, oh, you can't say this now. You're a sexist, you're this, you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to conform, or especially for kids, you're constantly changing the field of meaning, right? And in this case, what's the reward for a human being is whatever, your career, or just, being accepted by the students or by the teachers or by the world. And you keep changing this field. It's going up and down, getting bigger and smaller. This creates this cognitive dissonance, which actually generates schizophrenia on a mass societal basis, which is, very, I have to give it out to Pavlov, right? He did this on kids too, right? I mean, he wasn't just dogs. He experimented on human beings quite a bit, which is, any Pavlov fan, sorry to burst your bubble, but
Right. It's incredible. It really is incredible. Like the thought that they put into it. What a disaster I think the Soviet Union was too, in a lot of ways. Although I think that they had certain technical advances. Obviously, they were able to make a bomb, go into space, but the society was just bloody as hell, just super bloody from 1918 to Stalin's death, 55, maybe after World War II, was just the Red Terror for 2 years, right? How many people died in that? 1 or 2 million people?
I think it's about 10 million.
Wow.
But and then we can, we just stretch back, look at the French Revolution, right? And this is, everyone says, oh, the French Revolution. I mean, they had reduced absolute barbarism, right? They turned people into bloodthirsty maniacs, right? The French Revolution was just insane, over the top, in terms of barbarity. And another thing to note, with a lot of these, communist or whatever types of things, is the decapitation of society. You kill the intelligent, the creative, right? The educated, the elites, and they did this, like, I mean, China. That's why Taiwan. I mean, they wiped out a lot of the top people in China. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they
So
did.
and you're left with these kind of drone worker types of people.
Yeah, the proletariat, right? It's the word. The masses took over. And that's what happened in Russia. So all the elites got killed. It wasn't just the Romanovs. It was just everybody got slaughtered. The Khmer Rouge were really the rural kind of peasants, and they went into Phnom Penh, or however you pronounce it, and took all of the kind of elites or people with teachers and ever gave Kalashnikovs to 14-year-old kids and killed them all. And so the teachers or anybody skilled, they had to lie about their kind of like, oh yeah, I'm just a farmer. I'm just one of you. And incredible stuff. And that wasn't that long ago, really. 70s, I think, was
Yeah.
the whole killing fields.
And and Pol Pot, his, of course, was hanging out. He got his name hanging out in the cafes, hanging out with leftists on the left bank in Paris. And they said Pol Pot, which means political potential. He got his name.
Wow.
They said, oh, he's got Pol Pot. He's political potential in terms of, they're just hanging out. He was recruited, and, he didn't just come out of nowhere. He came, he was in the West. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
getting
A lot of them came out of Paris. So same thing with in Vietnam. I think it was Ho Chi Minh is in Paris. A lot of these guys learned the stuff from like that society, and a lot of those guys were in some kind of cafe culture, because the same thing happened to Stalin and Trotsky. Like, used to hang out at the same coffee shop before they came to power. It's incredible. It's in some place in Austria. But yeah, Pol Pot never repented either. He thought he was doing the right thing. He really thought that it was the right attempt to find justice. It's really something else.
Yeah. So, and I think we'll kind of go into more detail next time. This is like I call it a teaser. But so we look at like this Jerry Leno book. It was quite interesting, is that it goes into the whole connection with Adam Weishaupt, the Illuminati, all these kind of different occultic aspects. And I'll just read a little bit of the introduction. We won't get into that too much today, but it says, okay, the Soviet Union was established at 4 minutes past 2 o'clock on the 8th of November, 1917 in the Russian capital, Petrograd. In astrological terms, the sun was just then precisely at the center of the sign of Scorpio. Thus, Scorpio can be regarded as a symbol and guardian of Soviet power. The planet Pluto, in turn, affects those under the direct influence of Scorpio. In the past, Mars was said to rule Scorpio, but since Pluto's discovery in 1930, actually, Indians knew about Pluto for 3,000 years, but whatever. Okay. And its subsequent integration in the astrological system, it has assumed its rightful place in the sign of Scorpio. Okay. The fact that the Soviet emperor was born under the wrong planet, it has recently been revealed the Bolsheviks were well versed in astrology. So it goes, the whole Russian Revolution was tied into all these very specific astrological convergences, conjunctions, occult, workings. It basically was like even the killing of the Tsar, right? All this stuff. So he kind of breaks this down, and goes into the whole, connection, with the with the Illuminati, with Moses Hess, with Adam Weishaupt, and this whole. In fact, even Antifa was an occult organization that started in the Soviet Union, so they also have this doctrine, and it's almost like this sort of the Adam Kadam, bringing about the perfected world, through this type of violence. So it's actually Antifa's, it didn't start in the West. It was in the, there were the roots of Antifa were back at the pre-Soviet, some of these riots and stuff like that, what I mean? Back in the 1890s, early 1900s. So Antifa is not a new, of course, had
I think their symbol and flag goes all the way back to Europe, right? So the one that you see around with this red flag banner is or European origin, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, yes. So, but the thing that is, it is important that some of the stuff, to understand it, because again, hopefully, at least to a certain extent, I've made the case that this is the underlying foundational aspect of many things that are happening in our world today. And if you don't understand it, it's very hard to see, right? And so it's kind of, you look at it like a fruit, right? So you got your apple. Well, to get that apple, the tree, someone has to plant the tree has to grow, and all the branches of the tree. When you finally get the fruit, which is like W path, there's your fruit. It had to come from, it came through many decades of a lot of this, from, again, tied in directly with this idea of using the education system as a means of revolution, right? Using the education system to create this state of permanent revolution, but also to indoctrinate the youth. Oh,
Right.
you're muted. Yeah.
No, you're right. It is indoctrination. It's becoming. It wasn't always. Like, it slowly morphed into an indoctrination center, a lot of the social or public school systems. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess we could continue. We could kind of just I'll get into more of the details next time. I think I just kind of going through
Yeah, we can get back to this. I mean, we can go back to your stuff. Long March Through the Institutions, American funding of the New Rush. There's no question some of that funding came from external sources. Like, I mean, the Western world has been meddling with Russia for centuries, not really even decades. Like, it's something, even to the present day, it's really something else. What are the can you explain what the British white papers on revolution are? I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. So before we get to white papers, let's mention, so the Fabian socialism is very, very important, right? That ties into Tavistock. And so H.G. Wells, and so again, the Fabian socialists were these, a lot of them were very wealthy, hanging out the manor house, talking about world revolution, right? You know what I mean? So it's a little bit, but they came with this doctrine of, really this infiltration of, of the institutions, but doing it in such a way that it's invisible and people become indoctrinated without even knowing they're indoctrinated, right? So it's almost an invisible type of change. So H.G. Wells, the Time Machine, all of his science fiction, his books on his tomes on the New World Order. H.G. Wells is a very important writer and a very and actually even science fiction is very much part of this also. There was a lot of stuff.
Sure.
I could talk about the whole literature with the science fiction, some of the major science fiction magazines, introducing these types of doctrine into the public sphere, starting back in the 1940s, 1930s, even comic books, right? So there's there's a very broad array, but you familiar with that, H.G. Wells book, the New World,
Yeah.
uh, you
New
know,
World Order, right? Isn't it called New
yeah,
World
yep,
Order?
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, and sign of the shape of things to come, um, and and but like the Time Machine, everyone thinks, oh, this is a great, you're of course familiar with that, the Time Machine. But what do you recall about the Time Machine, William, if you remember that?
I remember the film. So I remember kind of the time machine. He goes, let's see, he uses the machine. I can't remember where he goes through different things, but I remember the end where he's with the Morgoth and the Eloi, right? And the Morgoths are the kind of orc characters that eat the Eloi, who are in this kind of happy, blissful state, Edenic kind of state. And then I don't remember that he falls in love with one of the Eloi or something, and then tries to take her back, right? Isn't that how it ends? What's your take?
Well, so what you see is this, and you find a similar thing in, Brave New World, right? You have this whole class of humanity reduced to this really animalistic, bestial state, right? So that is what is happening now, right? What do you think the queer, if you become totally queer and everything is broken down, you're going to end up like one of these animalistic, uh, you know, creatures. But basically, this is a way of, it is this particular doctrine, and this doctrine of, revolution, and this doctrine of social control, often posited as peace. Oh, this is, he's a leftist, he cares about people. But so this book, the New World Order, like the opening page says, whether it is attainable, how it can be attained, and what a world at peace will have to be. So again, what does peace mean, right? That's what we had. Go back to
Right. Got to go
Lenin.
back to Lenin. Right.
Peace means the control, total control under the communist um, revolution. And so, so the A is, New World Order, so this restructuring of the world, and all these you criticize, there's all this criticism of modern life or modern convenience as well. Do you want to go back to, it may be great to go back to nature. Maybe that's what we should all do. But I mean, it doesn't, you know, the quote unquote, capitalist or economic system is not inherently bad, right? If you have, you want to have a prosperous society. But again and again, we have these people that are talking about, okay, we have this class warfare, and then but we have to move towards collectivization, um, he's talking here about implementing a scientific dictatorship for peace, right? In order to have, like, Bertrand Russell. So, um, and so it's certain, and it's social. And then again, I'm just kind of skimming through this New World Order book. He says socialism is unavoidable. It has to happen. There's nothing that will stop it. It is a natural, it has its own thing. He's talking about new types of revolution, seizures of power. Um, the reorganization of the world has first to be mainly the work of a movement or a party or a religion or cult, whatever we choose to
Wow.
call it. We may call it
Wow.
new liberalism or new radicalism or whatnot. It will not be a close knit organization towing the party line and so forth. It may be very loose knit and many faceted, but a sufficient number of minds throughout the world, irrespective of race, origin, economic and social habitations can be brought to the free and candid recognition of the essentials of the human problem, then their effective collaboration in a conscious, explicit, and open effort to reconstruct human society will ensue. Sorry, that was a lot in there, but go ahead.
No, it's like incredible. So people are thinking about it all over the place. But Wells was super influential. Like he influenced Orwell. So many of these other writers came out of him. I think Wells wasn't like no Huxley read Wells. Like so, he was just one of the most influential guys, and also a Darwinist too, right? He came from faith and then became an atheist Darwinist, if I remember. But so that's the whole like thing from Brandon here is to the communists, this is pure evolution on a social scale. So they had an evolutionary idea, right? Wasn't that the material dialectics is that they'll go back and forth and its end is communism. So it's just a matter of time, right?
Yeah. So what I think in that particular paragraph is interesting. And so again, the reorganization of the world has at first to be mainly the work of his movement, in quotes, movement or a party or a religion or a cult. So right there, what is queer? It's a cult, right? How, you know what I mean? It is like he's saying religion, cult, movement. So it's, it's, and also what he's saying is that they will, in a certain way, most of the people involved may not even know what they are involved in. Okay. And then he says, it talks about education. So the education system must be modified. So he says, quote, vitalizing education is only possible when it is, sorry. He basically says education. Okay. The distribution of this essential conception, one may call propaganda, but in reality, it is education. So he's basically saying that the reinvigorated and modernized education is actually it's propaganda for the revolution, right? But someone could call it. So you see that in inversion of the terminology right there. And it's just going through the whole way, to set up these loose knit groups. They're going to create this whole, you have, what the funny thing is, just what I was talking about, how all these separate, movements and things are happening. They're all kind of connected towards the same goal. And that's exactly what he's talking about. That's what Wells is talking about.
Right.
And, vitalizing education, it is inseparable from, research instead of science, education. Okay. Um, anyway, so okay, this is you kind of got to primarily you have to see that like these books also are kind of like type of propaganda in terms of influencing people to think this is a great idea. Right. This is a great idea. It seems really cool. We're going to be peaceful, man. It's going to be great.
No, that's the funny thing is like now, like me, I look at this book as super sinister, but maybe back in the day, people were like, hey, he's onto something. This is a way we should do this order. So yeah, without, it's a man's kind of paradise, right? They don't talk about the Bible or God or anything like that. So that's the whole thing is the godless evolution. That's how they can murder millions of people, right? It's because it's all in the aim of the revolution.
Yeah. And so, and again, you see like the term peace, Lenin defined peace. Peace means total control of the entire world by the communists, total communist world control. That is what peace means. So they talk about peace. That's what peace is. Okay. Peace is not something else. And, the thing is that, he's talking about Harry Elmer Barnes.
I don't know who's Harry Elmer Barnes. I don't know who that is.
I just one of these old political figures from that. There's just the thing is you got to kind of go through Declaration of the Rights of Man. Okay, so we go United Nations, right? The new Declaration of the Rights of Man. Uh, you know, and I won't go through that, but these Declaration of the Rights of Man, so we can go into the loot. I don't want to go too far afield, but like the Lucis Trust. If you remember the Lucis Trust, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They were just in the news because they declared some kind of weird day yesterday. It was like World Federation Day or something. What was it? Lucis. I forgot what it was called. It was. I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, I know the Lucis Trust. Go ahead. Let's see if I can find this.
So we have he talks about world pax, world peace. The peace of man can be attained. Okay. Anyways, I won't. I'm not gonna. There's a lot in this book, but you do have to sift through it because again, he's writing to convince people of these ideologies. He's also writing with the encoded or veiled language for the actual insiders, right? For the inner circle, which is only a very small cadre or percentage. But United Nations, I mean, completely. You have uh, absolutely part of these doctrines. Okay, completely. You look at this whole thing with enforcing vaccines upon the world, right? Given the WHO and Tedros, where have you seen Tedros like wearing his short shorts, hanging out on the beach, at gay bars and stuff. He's pretty funny. I don't, it's not, you probably don't want to see that. Oh, there we
Yeah.
go. World Invocation Day.
Yeah, it was 2 days ago. Can you believe it? So that's
Oh my
it.
God, look how creepy that is.
Yeah, no, it's a Lucis Trust emblem right there on the upper left too.
Look at that.
And then here's the Great Invocation. It was
Can you,
observed on the day of Gemini full moon since 1952. So you see these guys' astrotheology. These things in the stars and stuff are very important to them.
the one work, the great work. This is a great work, right? This is a great work of Crowley. This is a great work of
The
whatever.
Hidden Masters, Blavatsky, all of them, right?
Yeah. And Blavatsky, if you ever like ISIS Unveiled, I mean, so and there's definitely, you got to say, like even like Manly Hall. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff and material they cover. Even the
Yeah.
Rosicrucian, some of that stuff. There's some pretty fast, because they've also taken, there's been many things that have been erased, right, from people's knowledge, right? At different types of things, even alchemy. It's not that all these things are per se evil. These are particular forms of knowledge, right? But the only way to access them now is through these particular organizations. And they're just like that New World Order book by H.G. Wells. He's indoctrinating you. He's got this very chatty, oh, this is so great, we're going to do that. But what's he talking about? He's, if you read between the lines or even read directly, it's all there. Could you just go up to the beginning? I think that's just
Sure.
the first page. So just look at this. So a day for worldwide use of the great invocation. So worldwide use of the great invocation. So this is a ritual, right? What are you invoking? You're invoking some kind of spiritual entity or power, right? It's an invocation. It's
Yeah, it's
capital.
the opposite of evocation. So evocation comes out, invocation is to bring down or right.
Yep,
Isn't that
you're
right?
putting it down. And so let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Restore the plan. What plan
Right.
are we talking about, guys?
Right.
What plan are you talking about, guys? You know what I mean? Like, whose plan? You know what I mean? Like,
Lucifer's.
yeah,
Lucifer's.
I mean, it's like,
It's Lucifer. That's why it's called Lucis Trust. They just have an arcane school conference too. If you're in London, you can go check it out. It's
oh,
today and
wow.
tomorrow. Yeah. You can get some arcane stuff.
Look at their, oh, that
A
little
symbol.
sigil, that little
Yeah.
sigil there. You got your Kilophot demonic cross there. So man, they're big. Arcane
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. In
Oh,
London.
wow. I thought these guys had faded away. I guess not.
No, man, their website is looking good. You can do Weaver's meditation, letting in the light meditation, conductor of the heart, evoking a new age symbol, ritual and religious impulse. Wow. Talk and conversation considering how ritual plays a key role in facilitating the organic transference from a spiritual life focused on sixth ray impulses to an approach, working consciously with the incoming seventh ray.
That's straight Blavatsky, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and so one of the things, you find, and I don't know if I've talked about this with you, but yeah, you go back to like, um, this a lot of these, groups, many of these sort of occult orders, they talk about these, great white brotherhood, these spiritual masters, um,
Right.
and so the uh, one of the things, and there's been a lot of discussion. We maybe go into this in more detail later, but basically that that they the person's will or identity gets broken down to a point, and they're receiving, you know, basically according to insiders, whatever, kind of etheric, non-physical communication. But these are people that are on earth, right? These quote unquote enlightened masters that are guiding these followers, or else they're Lucifer demonic entities, but they're becoming portholes to these enlightened masters, quote unquote. And who are these masters? Right? What is this? It's the sixth ray, seventh ray. This is just blatant occult. I mean, this is straight up. I mean, maybe you go down to that prayer. We know if we want
Yeah.
to read it. Let's
Check out the.
let's bring.
Yep.
Oh,
But it is like, may the coming one return to earth. Who's the coming one? It's their Messiah. This is what Benjamin Krem in the Maitreya or whatever. This is all their stuff. From the center where the will of God is known, let's purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. May it seal the door where evil dwells. Barbara Marx Hubbard said the Christians are what's holding back this beautiful new world order, and they all have to be exterminated. So, yeah, not really nice. This is all kind of love language, but internally, I mean, these guys, they have offices at the UN. They're all over Switzerland. It's really incredible.
yeah, and so I brought that up because of the temple. They have the temple and the UN,
Yeah,
and
the
the temple.
meditation room, right? It's called the
Yeah,
meditation room.
and they have this this weird black stone, and then they also have that I've got some documentation on that. They have that like sort of fused multiracial, like non-racial, like every race mixed together, the man of the future.
Oh,
They
wow.
have that sculpture. Yeah. um uh, and that's
There-
quite interesting, right? And that's from the 50s they put that out, but that's so that's like, you go back to calligraphy pan, basically what you're going to basically interbreed all the, Kudaf Kalergi, who also was totally connected with, connected with all the same, whatever, major power players, League of Nations, et cetera, et cetera. And he wrote, the Kalergi Pan is basically mass immigration, mix all the races together. So it's
right.
like almost like an Egyptian. And United Nations has this new man. It's this, that's part of it, right? You want to break down all the races. And then of course, when they say love and light and God, what is evil for them and what is good for them, right?
Right.
What is the love? What is the peace, of course, as we know, with the communists. But
But it all ties together, just like you said, like these philosophies, even though they're regional, like Lenin is Russia, Wells is UK, these kind of pushes for global order and what they'll do for the global order or just have cultural revolution to get to that control is extraordinary. Like, and that's the way these guys are, the new kind of world order types are thinking. And there's George Bush's famous New World Order speech in September 11th, 2001, right? Like these guys still, and Biden actually had a couple New World Order speeches too back when he was more lucid. So I think he's kind of on board with the same program. But yeah, it's incredible.
yeah, and so just to add more weight, on, or just to show again how broad this is. So United Nations, this is it's on quote here, but it's like, it's a religious organization based It's a philosophical cult based on an evolutionary vision for mankind. So the World Core Curriculum creator Robert Mueller has a book called 2000 Ideas for a Better World with 4 volumes, and he has a summary of key spiritual points that he delivered to the Millennial Assembly. Um, so this so I'm looking at the UN. Can I share the screen? I have this
Yeah, let me see if I can find
document
it.
here from the United Nations. I always like to
You have to go to present and then share screen, and then it'll pop up. And then I can bring it into the viewer. Share screen, and then it should, like, you go to window, so the tab will pop up. You go to window, and then you click on the window you want to share.
Okay, here we go.
There we go.
So, ideas and dreams for a better world. So this is a document, Robert Mueller. I mean, this is like, I mean, so this is, he's giving advice, it's like Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke, University for Peace, United Nations General Assembly, with the year 2000, you are becoming the most important person on earth in the entire human history. um, so these are actually interesting, like World Diplomatic Bulletin, just to see, and these are not just, whack jobs, that haven't showered for a month, Antifi, you know what I mean? Sleeping on couch surfing. These are, these are like major world political figures. But
read this first paragraph.
Yeah, go and read it.
Yeah. Dear Mr. Secretary General, with the year 2000, you are becoming the most important person on Earth in the entire human history. How can you face this overwhelming challenge in one of the most complex and messy, your words used in the latest World Diplomatic Bulletin, human, Earth, and evolutionary situations this planet has ever known? Here are a few advices from a lifetime world public servant and direct aid to 3 former secretaries general. It's incredible. Just like the flowery language. It's off the charts. That's 1999.
Yeah. So of course these are important things, but I mean the dates. But so note very quickly: Earth, human Earth, and evolutionary. So this idea, when we very first started the first episode, right? I talked about evolution, Darwin, how central this idea of this evolution and revolution, right? I mean, it's this is what I mean. Do I need to by the way, we didn't do a show a couple weeks ago, but I saw like 10 articles like on the Google News feed. Oh, new proof of evolution, a new species is found. This is found. That's found. This, particular organism, 2 organisms have merged and created a new organism. Blah blah blah. All this stuff. I mean, I don't. Is it true or not? I don't know. But all these, and then same thing. You talk all this stuff on cyber fusion, the new evolution, now how we've mapped the brain, we can augment the brain with computer technology. This is evolution. I mean, can all of us reach much, much higher peaks of who we are? Absolutely. What just, do you need to evolve? I mean, everything if you can maximize everything you have and you're just in your mind and your body, everything that's been given to you without any external modification, you can probably just do about anything. Now, can all of us do this? No, but you need to evolve. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, Like if we're not interfered with and you have the will and discipline and whatever, you don't need to evolve. So how are they deciding that the earth is evolving? But anyways, so I'll just go through some of his advices just to see this occult spiritual aspect hidden behind this, major political power players. So here are a few advices. I guess that correct English? Okay, maybe. Here are a few advices from a real time. Oh, you already said that. Lifetime world public servant, and direct aid to 3 former secretary generals. 1, you cannot count on anyone else but yourself. Every morning you must say to yourself, when I wake up, I am the only one who can give the inspiration and ideas to the world regarding our future. You can be helped, but your final proposals and recommendations are yours. Pray God and the invisible forces of the universe to help you. So, what do you think about that? Like,
Right,
what are you, a
crazy.
world dictator? I mean, how does anyone claim that kind of power?
Right. The language is something else. It's like totally like strange. Like you're the most important human. Like, wow, that's crazy. We are at the 1 hour, 20-minute mark, Hans.
Okay, yeah, we can.
I think we should kind of take this down for a landing, so to speak.
That sounds good. Yeah. So, and I'll go through pull some stuff out, but this is actually pretty interesting. This the stuff. 2,000 ideas for a better world. These are pretty freaky. And it would go. So anyways, like I said,
Yeah. I don't know
when
if you can see this. We had 177 people watching
oh
on X.
nice.
Yeah. So hi everybody. Go check out Hans Uter at his website, and I'll put a link to his website. It's HANSUTTER.com. It's .com, right?
That's correct. Yep, that's it. Yeah. All right, William. Well, hey, thanks for
Yeah.
the
That's good
yeah.
to talk
Any
with you again.
questions? I can answer a few questions here.
Let's see, anybody I got any? Sandra is asking, can you speak on the connection between cybernetics and kids on ADD meds?
So, we're looking at this idea of governance. Okay, so cybernetics again is based on types of systems of directed governance, whether you know individual, social, collective, etc. So basically, with AD medication, you're I mean, at least it's my understanding is that there's certain types of uh, personalities or types of sort of world approaches. It's based on sort of more immediate type of action that doesn't really fit into the more um, kind of rote type of work that's promoted in schools, the kind of mechanistic following rules. So ADD medication provides a type of stimulant that basically children that have this particular type of configuration, this mental neurophysical physiological output, they can be directed and controlled to become almost like you know docile, obedient, drones, so to speak. And it flattens out the variance in populations, right? So that's one of the things you want to keep certain you know types of abilities or perceptual possibilities out of the picture. You say this is a condition, you medicate it, and you change the neurophysiology of the children. You may permanently alter their neurophysiology, and you give them this internal programming. There's something wrong with me.
Right. Right.
But I can't get my work done because I mean, look, a lot of it's easy to do, right? Say like, okay, oh, I'm depressed. I can't do this because I feel depressed. Oh, I'm too William. I'm too depressed to talk to you. Sorry, man. But once you take that, you've taken on an internal model. You have now given up your own governance to an external diagnostic, right? To a label, which will excuse you from doing certain things. And also, it's a self-limiting type of mode, right? So, a lot of these types of diagnostics they're like internal um, programming cues almost, right? So you have a diagnosis, you suddenly limit your outcomes, and it's suddenly now I have a medical problem instead of actually considering what could be okay. Maybe I'm in a bad relationship. Certain types of kids,
Right.
they're going to
Right.
do
Right.
better in an active environment, right? Physically active. They're not.
No
Maybe they're not.
question. No
So
question.
go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, your analysis, I think, is on point. Like, you have a problem, I'm the solution, and this pill is it, right? Instead of thinking through. That's the real problem with kind of allopathic medicine in a lot of ways, or certainly the psych meds. A lot of them are really unnecessary, and I think that Prozac's super dangerous. It has like breaks down into fluoride. They're basically like, and the people they say when you come off of Prozac, like it's like coming off of a drug or something or meth. Like it's a real pain in the like your whole neurochemistry is all messed up and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just so this a lot of these, there's 2 points. Is that number one, it is an abdication of responsibility, just like we talked about the W path, right? So this is where, but see, this is where it's being, especially when you have children, that is where it's the responsibility of society, right? You're affecting children, you diagnose them and you say, okay, no, you're depressed, you don't know what gender you are. Find your gender, you'll be happy. Not dealing with the root issues. One of the things we have with this medication, look at testosterone and women, all these, mass shootings, right? Incredible rage, right? Some of these things cause absolute rage psychosis. Okay. So, and, it, on and on, but, also this idea, I mean, there's of course the societal input, but then there's also the abdication of responsibility, not thinking for yourself and also saying, well, I can't help it. This is wrong with me. And now I have a solution. What's wrong with you? Get off your ass and do what you need to do. That's what's wrong with you. Sorry. I mean,
well, they say like all depression is something based in not doing stuff. Like the reason you get depressed is because you're not actively solving your problems. There's something like, so you get into a state of stasis, and that's depressing. So instead of like, okay, what do I have to do? I need to get more sunshine. I need to get more exercise. You just sit and be most, glum and then think about the depression. So when you stop thinking you're depressed, it actually acts as an antidepressant because you're not ruminating on it. It's really interesting how the brain works, but many of these things are just like the solution. The pill solution is just really questionable, guys. A lot. Like especially like statins or health pills or something. Like go out and eat healthy food. Go drink a glass of orange juice or something. I don't know. It's like, wow, lose some weight, get some fresh air. Anyway, it's always good to talk with you, Hans. It's thanks so much. This will be our 5th show in this series, and it looks like there'll be a 6th one too. But and where can people? Do you have anything you'd like to add, or where can people find you? And what are you up to?
Check out my website. It's more and more stuff's being added. I also have a bunch of anyone wants to buy some gear. I got a bunch of gear for sale, and I'm getting just my CDs. I'm trying to. That's just the last little kink is getting the books and the CDs, for sale on the website. But yeah, so just shoot me an email, and it's there, and you can go to the store. Just and the stuff should be, ready to go, and I won't have to play guitar behind my head in a bar. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. I guess there's worse things. I don't have to play behind my head, but
keep on the bar, keep out of the bar circuit. But yeah, your website looks great. Like the update's legit. There's all kinds of tabs with stuff, store, gallery, see you play your music, and your schedule too. So people can check out the stuff. New Jersey Sitar. If you're on the East Coast, check it out. Hans Uter, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Take care.
Stay there.